Welcome back to part 2 of how to make a platformer game with our hero Hops and Paw in the smash hit 2 Cat 2 Curious. Alright, let's get into some editing. First off, I'm going to add some coins to our level as something interesting that our character can collect. To do this, I'm going to go to the tile map and I'm going to create a new placeholder tile that's going to signify where the coins should be created. In this case, I'm just going to do a yellow square. Now I'm going to paint these in a few locations on my world. Alright, and I'm going to hit done. And you can see that just adds these big yellow blocks to our world. So now we want to spawn tiles at these placeholder locations. And to do that, we're going to use loops. So I'm going to go to the loop category and drag out the 4-element value of list block. And then I'm going to go to scene, scroll down, and drag out the array of all locations block. And here I'm going to say all of these yellow placeholder locations. And then I'm going to say sprite. Set my sprite to create a new sprite. This one I'm going to call coin. And really quickly, I'm going to draw a coin. We're going to animate this in a sec. Let's just use the circle tool to create a coin sort of like that. And I'm going to fill this with yellow. And add some interesting orange highlights on the side to give it a little bit of depth. Now I want to place this coin right on top of this yellow block. To do that, I'm going to go to the scene category, scroll down, and say place my sprite on top of tile. This loop is going to enumerate all locations of this yellow tile, and the location is stored in this local variable here called value. I'm going to drag this value into the right side of this block. Now it says place coin on top of value, and the value is the location of a yellow block. And now you can see these coins appearing on the yellow blocks. Now there's one more thing I want to do, which is remove the yellow block after I've set the coin on it. So I'm going to go to the scene category and drag the set tile at location block, and I'm going to drag out this value again, which again represents location. Now you can see we're left with just coins. Alright, so now I want the hero to be able to pick up these coins. To do that, I'm going to go to the sprites category, scroll down, and drag out the on overlaps block. The way overlaps works is if one sprite overlaps with another sprite, we want to run some code. In this case, when our player overlaps with the coin. Now I'm going to go back to our coin real quick and say that coins are of kind coin. I'm going to create a new kind here. So set coin to sprite of kind coin. And I'm going to say when the player overlaps a coin, I want to run some code. Now first of all, I want to gain some points. So in the info category, go ahead and drag out a change score by block to increase the score when we overlap the coin. Now notice that our score is just going up and up and up. And what's happening is that we are continuously overlapping the coin so long as the cat is overlapping the coin. Now notice if the cat moves away, the score stops going up, and if the cat is overlapping the coin, then the score keeps climbing. So to fix this, we need to remove the coin after we overlap with it. So go to the sprite category, scroll down until you see the destroy block. This is going to destroy the coin. Now, other sprite here represents the coin that the player is overlapping with. So go ahead and drag this into the destroy block, and the block that pops out behind that, you can drag that into the left here to get rid of it. So blocks can be destroyed by dragging them into this left column. You can also undo actions that you do with these buttons here, or Control Z on your keyboard. Alright, so now when the cat runs into a coin, we get 1 point and the coin goes away. Alright, so now we have some coins for the cat to collect. Nice. Now to make the coins a little bit more interesting, I'm going to animate them. So go back to where we create these coins, and you might need to drag around your blocks to make some room. And next to where the coin is, we're going to add some animation blocks. Now, animations are found in an advanced category. Go to Advanced, Extensions, and click on Animation. And once we click on this extension, you should see a new category here called Animation. Go ahead and open that up. And we're going to drag out the Animate My Sprite block. And we're going to set that underneath the coin creation. And we're going to say the coin is going to animate with some frames. So go ahead and click on this gray square here. Now I'm in the animation editor, which looks a lot like the sprite editor, except that on the right here, I have a sequence of frames. So first up, I'm going to draw a coin again as just sort of a circle in the center of our screen. I'm going to fill that in with yellow and add some orange highlights for depth. All right, now on the right we see our single frame here. I'm going to go ahead and click this button to duplicate our frame. And I'm going to click the selection tool and I'm going to grab the left-hand side of the coin, drag it in, grab the right-hand side and drag it in. And the effect I'm going for is a spinning coin. And to do that, I'm going to progressively narrow the coin and then widen it again. One other helpful tip is this show previous frame button, and what that shows is a kind of fuzzy outline of where the previous frame was. And then also on the top right there's a play button that is going to show a preview of our animation. In this case I'm going to speed this up a little bit because I know that our animation is going to be a little bit faster than that. Alright, so I'm going to keep working here. Now you can see our coin shrinking, so I'm going to widen the coin back out again. And to do that, I'm going to select the frames that I previously made, duplicate them, and then click and drag them to play the same animation, but now backwards. And now you can see the effect is that we have a spinning coin on our screen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Done button. And now if we go look at the coins in our game, they're not spinning. And what's going on is we need to set loop to on so that the coins spin continuously and not just once. And indeed, you can see the coins spinning on our level. Alright, so next up, we want to do something similar to what we did with coins, but with enemies. We're going to add some challenge to our game. So again, I'm going to go to the tile map, open that up. And I'm going to go to My Tiles and create a new placeholder. This one is going to be orange. And this is going to be a placeholder for flowers. So I'm going to place some flowers on our level. And now you might be saying, wait a minute, flowers don't sound like enemies. But what I'm going to have is that when the player overlaps with a flower, it's going to spawn a bee. The bee is going to come seeking revenge. Alright, so I've got my placeholders and I'm going to do the same trick I did with the coin. I'm going to go to the loops category, drag out 4-element value of list, go to the scene category, scroll down until I see all the locations block of the orange placeholder for our flowers. And then I'm going to go to sprites category, say set my sprite. I'm going to call this flower. I'm going to say it's of kind flower. Then I'm going to go ahead and draw a flower. I'm going to shade the underside here with sort of a darker green. I'm going to add a sort of purple and pink flower petals. And actually, I'm going to use a darker blue for the shading here. And I'm going to say done. So now we're creating flowers. Let's place them on our locations again. To do that, I'm going to go to the scene category, drag out the place my sprite on top of location. This value represents the location of the orange blocks. Then I'm going to also go ahead and remove that placeholder block. So the flower on top of value, and I'm going to set the location of the placeholder to a blank. So this is going to say every orange placeholder, we're going to create a flower. And again, when I overlap these flowers, nothing happens yet. I need to go to, similar to how we overlap the coins, I'm going to go to the sprites category, scroll down until I see this on overlaps block. I'm going to say when the player overlaps a flower, I want to do something. And what I want to do is create a bee. So I'm going to go to the sprites category, drag out the set my sprite block. I'm going to call this bee. And the bee is going to be of kind enemy. There, I didn't need to create a new one. I can use one of the presets called enemy. Now, instead of drawing a bee, I'm going to go ahead and just create an animation for a flying bee. Again, I'm going to drag out the animate block, say bee, open up the animation editor. And the bee is going to be kind of very simple looking. And the animation is going to be of the bee sort of flapping its wings. So I'm going to click this duplicate button. And for my second frame, I'm going to remove the wings. And now when I play the animation, you can see the wings sort of flapping there. Let's go ahead and select done. And now we can see the bee appeared when I fell on the flower. And I'm going to loop the animation and make it pretty fast. Now, the one other thing we want to do when we overlap a flower is to remove the flower. So go to the destroy block again. And I'm going to say this other sprite, which represents our flower, needs to be destroyed when we run into it. So we destroy the flower, and there comes our bee. Now the bee is always starting in the same place. If I go here, there's no bee around there. It's just over here. So the bee, we're going to create it at the top right part of our screen. Now to do that, I'm going to go to the sprites category and drag out the set position block. And we want to set the position of our bee to a math expression that's going to be based off of our cat's location. And to do that, I'm going to use the plus block, and I'm going to say in the sprite category, let's take the of hops and paw, let's take its x position and add 80. And same thing for the y position. And a quick shortcut is you can right click on this math block and say duplicate. Now you have the same bit of code that I can drag into the Y position. And I'm just going to say the Y position of hops and paw. And now we're setting the position of the bee to a position that's relative to hops and paw. Now one other thing I want to do is have the bee follow the player. So I'm going to search for follow again. And this time I'm going to drag out the set my sprite follow my sprite, and I'm going to say the bee here is going to follow hops and paw. So now when I overlap a flower, you can see the bee is trying to get to me. And it's actually coming at me from down below, and I want it to come from up above. So instead of adding to the Y position, because remember the 0, 0 origin is in the top left corner of our screen, I actually want to subtract from the Y position. Now when I overlap a flower, you can see the bee flying down from above. And the idea is that the cat is going to have to dodge and duel this bee. Now there's no overlaps happening with the cat yet, so let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to go to the sprites category again, scroll down until I see the on overlaps. Now I'm going to say when the player overlaps an enemy, well, first off, the simple thing is I'm going to lose some life when this happens. And if we do that, we should quickly lose the game. To make it a little bit more fair, I'm going to destroy this bee also when we overlap it with the player. So the player loses at most 1 lives per bee, and the bee goes away. All right, so there we lost a life. We started at 3 lives. Actually, let's make that explicit. So let's go to our on start, go to info category, and drag out the set life block. And I'm going to say that we actually start with 5 lives. Okay, so now you can see we have 5 lives up there. And when we hit a flower, we spawn a bee, and this bee comes and takes away 1 of our lives. So I want a way for our cat to be able to defeat the bee. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to have it, if the cat is above the bee, then the cat wins. And if the bee is above the cat, the bee wins. Sort of like jumping onto enemies in a Mario game. All right, so to check who is on top, I'm going to use a conditional statement. I'm going to drag out the if-else block. Now, in the condition of the if-then block, we want to do a comparison of our position with the bee's position. So in the logic category, let's drag out this comparison block, and I'm going to use the less than block. So in the sprites category, I'm going to drag out to the X position of Hops and Paw, and I'm going to compare that with the Y position of the other sprite here. And the other sprite represents our bee. Again, this is a local variable in this collision block. All right, so if Hops and Paw is less than the bee, which means it's closer to the top, then we want to gain some points. So I'm going to go to the info category and say change score by. I'm going to say we get, let's say 3 points for every bee we defeat. Now this change life, I want to move into the second branch, and you'll notice what happens with blocks is if you grab one of them, all the ones below it move with it. But one trick you can use to get around this is on Windows, hold the control key, or on Mac, the command key, and click and drag a block to move just that single block. All right, now let's play test and see how this works. And if I jump on top of a bee, notice I gained a bunch of points. And if I let the bee float down on top of me, I lose a life. So that is the trick with defeating these bees. So now I can go around, avoid the bees, defeat them, and gain points. Now I'm going to move my face over to the left here to get it out of the way. And next up, I want to animate our cat to make it look a little bit more lively. Notice that when it's going backwards, it just sort of walks backwards. That's not quite the effect we want in our game. So to do this, I'm going to use some tricks of animation. Now to do this, I'm going to detect the motion of our cat. To do this, I'm first going to find some space in our editor on the left here. And I'm going to go to the game category and drag out the on-game update block. Now, games, like movies, are made of a sequence of frames that happen many times a second. So a movie is usually 30 to 60 frames per second, and a game runs somewhat similarly. And this on-game update says that every frame we get to run some code. Now, inside of on-game update, I'm going to change the appearance of our cat based on how it's moving. But by default, I always want our cat to look like this image that we drew here. So I'm going to go to the sprites category, scroll down to the image section, and drag out the set my sprite image block. And I'm going to drag this cat drawing we have into there. And I'm going to choose Hops and Paw. And then I'm going to go to the logic category and drag out an if statement. And I'm going to do a number comparison of the x velocity of our cat. So if our cat is moving backwards, it'll have a negative x velocity. So drag out my sprite, and I'm going to say Hops and Paw's velocity in the x direction. If it's less than 0, that means it's moving backwards. I want to do something. And what I want to do is I want to go to the images category, scroll down. I'm going to say flip horizontally. And what I want to flip is the image of Hops and Paw. So scroll down and grab out this image block. And I'm going to say Hops and Paw's image flip horizontally. All right, now when I'm moving to the right, I look like normal. And then when I move left, you can see that we have kind of an opposite visual here. Great. Now I want to add a different visual when the cat is jumping. So to do that, I'm going to grab another if statement. Drag that out here. This time I'm going to have the if with else, and that's going to run some code if the condition is true and some other code if the condition is not true. And again, I'm going to do a logic comparison. And this time I'm going to look at the velocity in the y direction of our cat. So I'm going to go and grab out another one of these blocks. And I'm going to say if hops and paws velocity in the y direction is less than 0. So less than 0 would be negative, and that means going up. So if it's going up, we want to give a different image to our cat. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the sprites category, scroll down, and drag out another set my sprite image block. And we're going to set a image of hops and paw when he's jumping. All right. Now that kind of looks like a jumping cat. I'm going to go ahead and say done. And now you can see that we go into this jumping animation when hops and paw is jumping. And same thing with falling. I'm going to add another visual for falling. So I'm going to scroll down again, say set image of hops and paw to a new sprite. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit done. And you can see that our cat is usually in the falling animation here. And that's because I actually want another condition on this image. And I want it to be only if the velocity is positive. So if the velocity is 0, we don't want either of these images to be applied to our cat. So now we see the regular look of our cat. And when you jump, you get that one image. And when you fall, you get a different one. Now, actually, if you look closely, you can see that the fall animation is sort of behind the jump animation. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up by opening this, selecting the Move tool, and moving all of my cat images to be kind of on the bottom and to the right. There we go. Let's move this guy down. There, that looks a little bit more consistent now. Now we have jumping and falling animations, which gives quite a bit more life to our cat. Now one thing you'll notice is that the jumping animations are not reversed yet. And to do that, I can simply drag this first if block and move it down lower. So I can flip the image horizontally, whether that is flat, jumping, or falling. Let's see if that works. And yes, you can see that our cat now has these dynamic images in every direction. All right, so when our cat is walking, you see the legs don't really move. Let's add a little bit of movement to the cat when it's walking. And to do that, I'm going to use a little trick. I'm going to hit this plus button here and do a little bit of math. So I'm going to go to the logic category and do a comparison. And I'm going to check the remainder of the cat's X position divided by 2. And what this little trick does is it basically checks to see if the cat's X position is changing. And if it's not changing, then it'll stay still. If it is changing, we're going to see a different image. And to do that, I'm going to copy this image up here, right-click, duplicate. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to just shift the legs around a little bit. And the effect this should give is that the cat will sort of appear to walk. And now if I try it out, you can see the cat's legs kind of jitter as it's walking. Gives it a little bit of a walking animation feel. All right, so now we've got our cat moving around, jumping, animating, pouncing on foes, collecting points, losing lives, and we will continue this in the next video.